All right, shall I get started? Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this special board meeting. Joining me today are Naomi Shelton, Jim Sandman, Ricardo Ganjam. Our board chair, Lea Crusey, is also joining us, but because he's calling in, I'll be chairing the meeting, Lea Crusey, today in his place. And Saba Barreda is unable to join us and will be voting by proxy. As we move through each agenda item, Briani, our moderator for the morning, will unmute DC PCSB staff or individuals speaking on behalf of a school. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. Individuals who had previously signed up to testify would be called upon. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. And if you didn't sign up by sending your name to the public comment mailbox before this meeting, please do submit your comments to the public.comment@dcpcsb.org or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at area code 202-328-2660 and select option 2. It doesn't sound like we have any witnesses who signed up to speak today. So as a reminder, you can submit public comment via email or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony. That email address again is public.comment@dcpcsb.org. Phone number again is 202-328-2660 and select option 2. Before we approve the agenda, I understand Apple Tree Public Charter School has withdrawn its amendment request. So can I please have a motion to remove the Apple Tree item and approve the revised agenda?
I move to remove the Apple Tree Public Charter School item from the agenda and approve the revised July 26, 2021 board meeting agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Have a second. Roll call vote. Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Ricardo Ganjam.
Aye.
Lea Crusey.
Aye.
And I have an aye from Saba Barreda. I am an aye. The vote is approved. I now invite Melodi Sampson, Senior Manager for School Quality and Accountability.
Good morning. Last week, the board heard from KIPP DC Public Charter School regarding its proposal to offer virtual programming for up to 280 pre-K 3 through 12th grade students in school year 21-22. The school also seeks to transition its virtual program into a standalone online campus at the start of school year 22-23. Today, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to approve KIPP DC Public Charter School's request to operate a virtual programming. However, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board limit the virtual instruction to grades K through 12. KIPP DC Public Charter School has yet to demonstrate that its virtual program is appropriate and effective for early childhood learners. Additionally, staff recommends that the board vote to deny the school's replication request because the school does not meet the replication approval standard. DC PCSB opened this proposal for public comment on June 29th. The public comment window closed on July 19th, and DC PCSB received 2 public comments in support of this proposal.
As noted during last week's meeting, I will be recusing myself from the first 2 applications or proposals for today's meeting.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you for joining us again, KIPP team. We had a chance to hear from the team last week during our regular monthly board meeting, and wanted to see if there are any board members who had any questions or comments to offer before we move forward. Go ahead, Jim.
I have some questions about the standards that will govern eligibility for participation in virtual learning. Looking at the criteria that are in the staff memo on page 3. The first regards medical conditions independent of COVID-19. And my question is whether a medical certification will be required to qualify for that standard.
Yes, good morning and hello to everyone. We will be using the OSCE certificate for any medical eligibility families and students.
Thank you.
Mhm.
About the secondary, and students excel more academically in the virtual environment than they did in the in-person environment. How performance in the virtual environment measured, and how did that form of assessment compare to the assessments you had previously done for performance in the in-person environment? I'm trying to understand whether there's an apples to apples comparison here between your assessment of student performance in school year 2021 and student performance in school year 1920.
We did have so some of the metrics are apples to apples. We did not have the PARC testing, and so we don't have that comparison piece, but we do have some of our more interim assessment and standards-based unit assessment data that we can share. But that is going to be, so our virtual students will do the same in-person assessments that our brick and mortar students will do. And so that's our different reading assessments, our math assessments, and then the interim assessments as well.
Yes, but I'm inquiring about eligibility to get into the virtual, full-time virtual program for the coming school year. That's a retrospective look at how students, and can you tell me what comparators you have to determine, to come to a conclusion that a student during the past year with remote learning excelled far more academically in that environment than they did in the prior year?
Got it, yes. So there's kind of two ways that we're looking at. One is just looking at the overall attendance data, making sure that they had their greater than 90% attendance. And then the second piece that we've got is maintaining academic progress. And we're defining that maintaining academic progress across sort of three things. One, their overall GPAs and grades. Two, any interim assessments, those like Lexia reading assessments, showing progress on those. And then three, we've been working with the homeschool principals to make sure that the snapshot of data that we have of those students sort of represents the same thing that they saw in the day-to-day classes that they did virtually.
But I see this standard as the students have to excel far more academically in the virtual, not simply done the same as or a little better than, but far more. How will you assess that? Also, I just have a question about the number of students that you anticipate meeting this standard of doing far better academically in the virtual environment. Your application could go up to 280 students. That just strikes me as an unusually large number of students who would have performed far better academically in the virtual environment than in the in-person environment.
Yeah, so I think like one, we don't have a percentage metric that we're looking at of like, you know, if a student did 20%, but if their GPA was X% higher in person versus virtual. I think that there is a broad range of criteria and a broad range of data points that we can look at and that we do look at consistently with kids. And so we don't, I don't recall the far more or far better, but we do want to see kids progressing better than, or at least as they did. I think one of the most anecdotal pieces that we've heard from families that we've seen to be true on the one pagers that we've looked at for students is that there were students who were previously never on the honor roll who are currently on the honor roll through virtual. And so that to me is a definition of far better, hitting that metric. Now, is that true for every single student? No, but across the board of maintaining that attendance piece and maintaining that academic progress piece, showing that they've done better virtually is for our non-medically exempt students, what we're gonna be looking at.
And Jim, on the, I can take the portion of the 280 question. It's a, you know, when asked, what do we think the size of this program is going to be, or we want it to be, our answer has been consistently around 280 students for next year. The challenge with that, with answering that, is we don't yet know the number of medically eligible students that we'll need to serve. It very well could be above 280. We don't know yet. We're still gathering that data and we'll gather it over the next little bit. But our goal is that this program, both medically eligible and non-medically eligible students, is right around 280 students next year, knowing that if the medically eligible students exceed 280, that we'll have to be flexible. So I know I know that's not a great answer, but it's the truth of what we're working with, is that until we know that medically eligible number, we can't put a firm number on it. But our goal, again, is that the program next year is around 280 students.
Thank you.
Board members, any further questions?
Lea, I have a question for staff on the denial of the replication. Melodi, could you just say more there and what would need to be true for us to approve that?
Sure. So the replication standard for approval has a stipulation that a school need to have majority of its campuses receiving a tier 1 status on the PMF for majority of the past 5 years. And the school doesn't meet that expectation because some of its campuses have tier 2 ratings across the 5-year look back.
So then no matter the performance of this group of students who ultimately enroll, this could never be reconfigured or configured as a standalone campus, or the intention of staff is that this never be a standalone campus until KIPP meets that particular part of the policy.
If this were not a year still in the middle of a pandemic and coming hopefully through a pandemic, I could say yes to that. But because we are, as you know, we amended the way we were doing enrollment ceiling increases through the COVID impact policy. We didn't do that same thing for replication requests. And so now we are at a point where we need to be thinking about what are the criteria that we'll be using moving forward, especially as we transition our accountability framework. And determine, again, what are the criteria that we want to use that will help us determine whether a program is high quality and has the capacity to expand. So I would say that we are having those conversations now. I don't know what the final criteria we will end up using for a proposal like this one will be in the future. But right now, using just what we've got.
Yeah,
expectation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think in looking at what the LEA is trying to do here within its current enrollment ceiling, or at least it's currently configured, this feels a little slightly different to me, especially in that we are looking at these amendments through the lens of not schools seeking to stand something up for this year and this year alone, but to Dr. Walker Davis's opening comments last week, we're going to misquote exactly how she framed it, but we're looking at establishing programs that would persist into the future. So if KIPP is successful, as I think we would all hope, should we approve this, or at least approve the first part of this, we would have a school with a significant number of students being served virtually. And it just begs the question for me as to why we would not make that a standalone campus, and what they would need to do, even if their other campus, even if they didn't meet the all tier 1 policy, which is in there for very, very good reasons. I'm sort of having trouble reconciling this particular request of theirs. And if the answer is we want to see results of this year with this particular group of students, I can accept that, but it's unclear to me that we're looking for some specific performance out of the online students in order to reassess should they reapply if indeed we don't allow them to replicate. So I'm just trying to navigate that sort of the if then here in terms of this being a standalone campus, if indeed that's the right thing in the future.
So I do think that that was staff's recommendation, that we look at how their performance is over the next year. And we've asked the school to collect data of all of their students, but also zeroing in on the students who are participating or who would be participating in the virtual program. If they're able to demonstrate that their students are doing just as well as the students who are learning in person, we would absolutely encourage them to come back and seek the replication proposal. Ultimately, it is our desire that we are able to measure performance that's specific to the campus. And so being able to isolate the virtual learners as its own campus that is responsible for meeting the goals that are in the school's charter agreement, that's the ultimate desire. But we fall, like, we're not at the point right now where we are confident in saying that, yes, this should be a standalone campus today. We first want to see how they do over the next school year.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for the clarity.
And Chairman Cruz, I appreciate your follow-up questions. I think I come from a similar place of having been grappling with a path to be able to plan completely, while also we're recognizing that we're in uncharted territory at the kind of systems level to understand really what it's going to take to deliver virtual instruction well, while we are all collectively in a moment of also thinking about measurement in a more complete way, measurement of success. So I've landed in a place where I am comfortable with the staff recommendation with optimism that this is the right set of enabling conditions to learn and to be able to meet families' needs in this moment, in anticipation of and in support of innovations around different instructional models that we need to be thinking about in this moment in time.
Yeah, Leah, I would just add, I really view this as a pilot this year that would continue to expand over time as it's with the results that we're expecting to see.
I also very much appreciate Jim's questions around being really thoughtful and very intentional about determining eligibility criteria. If we're thinking about centering on each student, then really understanding the unique needs of each student and what constellation of supports need to exist around that student, anticipate it, be able to measure it, et cetera, that will serve these students well and also enable better planning in the future. So with that,
Leah, can I add a point of clarification? I'm sorry, this is out of order, but I just wanted to add a reference or clarification. I appreciate all those comments. One thing that we are trying to think through that I just want to put on your radar as you think about, if you use the word pilot or kind of next steps, our understanding is that if we were to go down the replication road, that application is due April 1st of next spring. And so, we're already thinking about that. As we mentioned last week, we're very committed to this program, but we're also thinking about what data would actually be available at that time, in terms of longitudinal data to figure out, does this work or not? And so just as the board is considering that, I'd throw that out there because we will try our hardest to come up with data that we think is really robust and thoughtful. But given that timeline, I think we're going to have to, what we'll be able to provide may not be everything that you want it to be.
Madam Chair. Go ahead, Melodi.
I just want to make a clarification, and then I'll leave it to you, Dr. Walker-Davis. To be clear, the April 1 deadline is to seek an increase in the cap of students who are served virtually. So if you wanted to serve more than 280 students in the virtual program beyond the school year 21-22, then you would need to submit the request by April 1. The request for replication could actually come in June, by June 1. And I'm sure we would be happy to talk to you offline about what the data we would be interested in you using throughout the next school year. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Walker-Davis.
Thank you, Melodi. I just wanted to basically say the same thing that you did and express our desire to work with you around what those data would look like and how we could work toward you having the information you need to put forth a robust application for the replication. And then I also wanted to echo the sentiments that this is an opportunity for all of us to learn and make one friendly amendment to Board Member Ganjam's comment about pilot, in that this is a request for your permanent and substantive programming. So we are fully, from the staff's perspective, recommending that this become a full part of your program. And if ultimately a standalone campus does get approved, then yes, we would be moving on to that particular part of the journey. But if not, there is still an expectation that, like your other programs where you serve students virtually, this would be a permanent and substantive part of the overall KIPP portfolio. So I just wanted to make sure that that was on record, that we're not seeing this as a temporary solution.
And would like to call attention to the question Board Member Ganjam raised about any kind of impact on the lottery for next year, given timing.
So I guess it was last month, you all approved the charter agreement amendment petition submission policy, which set in place a new timeline for vetting, for receiving applications and then vetting those applications for any type of charter amendment. For a replication, we would actually request that the submission come a year before the school actually intends to expand into the new campus. And so for example, if KIPP DC were to come back on June 1 of 2022 requesting to replicate, it would not be able to implement that program until the 23-24 school year. And so that means that we wouldn't have that sort of messy transition in terms of trying to quickly get students and families aware of the new offering and then in the lottery.
Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the charter amendment request of KIPP DC Public Charter School with the modifications as proposed by staff, and approve the DC PCSB board chair to sign the amendment on the board's behalf.
Thank you, Ricarda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rick. We'll do a roll call vote. Ricarda Ganjam,
Aye.
Rick Cruz,
Aye.
Jim Salmon,
No.
Lea Crusey is aye, and Saba Bereda's proxy vote is approved, and Naomi Shelton is recused. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, KIPP DC.
Thank you all.
And Melodi, please don't leave just yet. I understand that the Howard University PCS team will not be joining us today.
Correct. The board heard from Howard University Public Charter Middle School of Mathematics and Science last week regarding its proposal to offer the Summit Learning Model in a virtual environment for up to 40 6th through 8th grade students. The school will require instructors to simultaneously educate in-person learners while teaching a small group of virtual learners. Today, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to deny the school's proposal. Howard University Public Charter School has yet to demonstrate that its virtual program will result in sustained or improved charter goals performance. Additionally, DC PCSB staff is not confident demand for the school's virtual program will persist beyond the pandemic. DCPCSB opened the proposal for public comment on June 29th, and the public comment window closed on July 19th. DCPCSB did not receive any public comments on this proposal.
Thank you, Melody. We don't have the Howard team here, but are there any board members who have questions for the staff or want to get on the record with any kind of comments?
Lea, I would just say I am going to vote against and in support of the staff recommendation. I would just say that I did not see demonstrated in the application or the presentation last week the long-term durability of this program. I completely understand the needs that schools may feel this coming year for a virtual option. But again, I didn't see a model that I personally would vote at this moment of in support of long-term student outcomes.
Thank you for that, Rick. I just wanted to clarify then, Melody, for the academic year ahead, where students may have a medical exception to continue to go to school remotely, would the school still be able to provide those services?
Yes, in fact, they'd be required to.
Thank you so much.
With that, can I have a motion?
I move to deny Howard University PCS's charter amendment request.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Roll call vote. I'll begin with you, Jim. Jim Sandman,
Aye.
and to clarify, so this is I in support of denying.
I as to deny the
Got it.
charter amendment application. Yes.
Ricardo,
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Lea Crusey is aye. Saba Barreda is in support of not approving the charter amendment. So the Naomi Shelton is recused again. So the ayes have it. And now, Brianni, could you please let Ms. Shelton know that she's welcome back?
I just
And-
messaged her.
Great, thanks. And Melody, if you can wait just one moment until she's back before beginning the next.
She's back.
Welcome back, Naomi. All right, Melody.
Brianni, there are also two school representatives
I'm
from Maya
sorry.
Angelou.
Thank you.
So last week, the board heard from Maya Angelou Public Charter School regarding its proposal to offer a hybrid learning model at its high school, Maya Angelou Public Charter School High School, which is an alternative school for opportunity youth. The school will engage in virtual and in-person instruction. The number of hours each student spends in either environment will depend on their individual needs. The school expects more students to continue learning in person, but it seeks flexibility to permit students to complete coursework virtually. Today, DCPCSB staff recommends that the board vote to approve Maya Angelou Public Charter School's request. The school sufficiently demonstrated that its hybrid model is consistent with its charter goals and is inclusive. It also demonstrated that its stakeholders support the educational approach. DCPCSB opened the proposal for public comment on July 1, and the public comment window closed on July 19th. DCPCSB received 3 public comments in support of this proposal after the public comment window closed. Great,
Thank you, and welcome back, Team Maya. First, do any board members have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Jim.
I've got a couple of questions about the eligibility criteria, which I generally like very much. They're specific and they're narrowly tailored. Most of them deal with situations that are persistent, constant situations affecting the students. But the one about recurring parole appointments or court sessions, justifying full-time virtual instruction, that strikes me as which one of these is different from the other puzzle. I wouldn't expect that the frequency of parole appointments or court sessions would be such as to require full-time virtual education. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, Mr. Sandman. So I think in our application more specifically, we are looking for flexibility for students in these scenarios, which also includes partial day programming. So for a student who has court-involved obligations or parole appointments, they may have to leave school early once or twice a week, depending what those obligations are. But the majority of time they are in school with us, just because of the way our scheduling and our general education programming works. We just wanted to make sure that we included this because we do have a fair number of students who are in this situation. But most students in that particular scenario who meet that particular eligibility criterion, it would just be partial virtual programming, not full virtual instruction.
Thank you. With that understanding, I'm fine with that. And second, I just want to repeat a point I made in a public hearing last week. I would like the eligibility criteria to be a closed set. The staff memo says that the criteria would include the things listed, but that leaves open the possibility that there might be others. What others? I'd like to pin down what the eligibility criteria are. If it's acceptable to limit the criteria to the ones that are specified in the staff memo, perfect. I'm fine with that. If there are more, I would like to try to have you work with staff to pin those down so that it's not open.
I'd offer the acknowledgement from the comments from last week's board meeting for, I remember one reason why there was concern about being too explicit. So I agree with Jim's comments and encourage thinking carefully about how to phrase those other scenarios with regard to safety and security of students.
Absolutely. We actually went back and we spoke with Principal Weeks and our academic team and our staff. We have some ideas that we can work with on PCSB staff to make sure that we add to that list of criteria so that no scenarios, especially for which there are past precedent, are missed. But that, to Mr. Sandman's point, then the list of criteria is closed.
Thank you.
Do we have any further comments or questions from board members? Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the charter amendment request of Maya Angelou Public Charter School and approve the DC PCSB board chair to sign the amendment on the board's behalf.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Ricardo Ganjem.
Aye.
Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Rick Cruz.
Aye.
Lea Crusey is aye. And we have a proxy vote from Sabra Beretta to approve staff recommendation. So the ayes have it. Thank you very much, Team Maya. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any new business? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the July 26, 2021 board meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Roll call vote. Ricardo Ganjem,
Aye.
Naomi Shelton,
Aye.
Jim Sandman,
Aye.
Rick Cruz.
Aye.
I have support from Sabah Breda. I actually think that we need to get that clarified on the proxy vote. But the ayes have it. So we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you.